In this video, we are looking at two-way tables. You can think of two-way tables as slightly more detailed frequency tables. I'll come back to this idea at the end of the video. Let's take a look at the question. This table shows the numbers of students in years 9, 10 and 11 studying the different modern foreign languages. Each student studies exactly one modern foreign language. So we have columns for years 9, 10 and 11, and we have a total column, and we have rows for each of the three languages, French, German and Spanish, and we have a total row. Now, for the purpose of this example, I want to ignore these questions to start with, and I just want to focus on the table. You'll notice that there are lots of bits of missing information, but there are bits of information that we are given. For example, if I asked you how many year 10 students study French, you would be able to tell me that it is 70, because what we would do is look down the year 10 column and across the French row, and you would see that that is the number of year 10 students studying French. If I asked you how many students study Spanish altogether, you could look in the Spanish row and down the total column, and you would see that there are 172 students in total studying Spanish. If I asked you how many year 10 students are there altogether, you would look down the year 10 column and look across the total row, and this tells you that in total there are 178 year 10 students. If I asked you how many students study French in total, you might be tempted to go to the French row and look across to the total, but you would find it is blank. But that's okay, because we can work this out. In fact, you've got enough information in this table to fill in all of the blanks. Let's start with this one up here then. How can we work out the total number of students who study French? Well, we know how many year 9 students study French, we know how many year 10 students study French, and we know how many year 11 students study French. So across the 3 year groups, we know the total is just 58 plus 70 plus 67. And that comes to 195. Another easy one to work out is this total down here, the total number of students in year 9. So in year 9, you have 58 students studying French, 47 studying German, and 63 studying Spanish. And remember, we know each student only studies one language, so we're not having any students that study two at the same time. So these are all different students. That means in total, we have 58 plus 47 plus 63. That gives you a total of 168 year 9 students. It now gets a little bit trickier. Let's have a look at German students in year 10. So how many year 10 students study German? Well, we know 70 year 10 students study French and 44 year 10 students study Spanish. And we know that there are a total of 178 year 10 students. So the number of French, German and Spanish students in year 10 should add up to 178. Now 70 and 44 only add up to 114. To get a total of 178, we need to find what we need to add on to 114 to get to 178. And we can do that by working out 178 minus 114. And that gives us 64. Now we can quite easily work out the total number of German students across all 3 year groups. Pause the video and see if you can work that out. You should have got a total of 168. Now, it is just a coincidence that that number there is the same as the 168 here. You won't always get the same number in 2 different parts of a table. Let's look at how many year 11 students study Spanish. So what number needs to go in here? Well, we don't have the total number of year 11 students, but we do have the total number of Spanish students. We know that these 3 numbers must add up to 172, the total number of year 9, year 10 and year 11 Spanish students. So using this row, can you work out the missing number here? Pause the video and have a go. What you should have found is that the Spanish students in Year 9 and Year 10 add up to 107. We need a total of 172, so we need to do 172 minus 107, and that gives us 65, and that is the missing number here. There are 65 Year 11 students. If you want to check your answer, you can do that. Simply add up these three numbers on your calculator and make sure they add up to the total. If they don't, that means we've made a mistake somewhere. Finally, we've got just these two left to go. We can find the total number of Year 11 students by adding the Year 11 French, German and Spanish students together. 67 plus 57 plus 65 equals 189, and we can work out the total number of students by adding the total number studying French, the total number studying German, and the total number studying Spanish. And if we add 195, 168, and 172, we get 535. Now, it's a really good idea here to check that these totals also add up to 535. The total number of Year 9, Year 10, and Year 11 students should be the same as the total number of French, German, and Spanish students. If they don't add up to the correct grand total down here in the bottom right, that means we've made a mistake. I've just checked these on my calculator and they do indeed add up to 535, which is what we expect. Now, let's have a look at these questions. Question A, how many students study French in Year 10? So French in Year 10, that's 70 students. So we could have done that without doing any of the working because we already had that information given to us in the table. Question B, how many students study German altogether? So we need to look for the total for German, and that's 168. And you'll see that that's one of the numbers we had to work out for ourselves. Pause the video and answer questions C and D. Here are the answers. How many students are there in Year 11? Well, the total for Year 11 is 189. And for question D, what is the total number of students in Years 9, 10 and 11? Well, if we add up all of the students in Year 9, Year 10 and Year 11, we get these numbers added together, which is 535. And as I've just mentioned, that is the same answer that we would get if we asked, what is the total number of students studying French, German and Spanish? Basically, this is the entire population of students in those three year groups. Before we wrap up this video, I just want to get back to something I mentioned at the start. I said this type of table, which is known as a two-way table, is like a frequency table, but with a bit more information. I can present some of the information from this two-way table in a frequency table like the ones we saw in a previous video. For example, I could just list out the languages: French, German and Spanish, but only tell you the total number of students that studied each one. So for French, that would be 195, for German it would be 168, and for Spanish it would be 172. I'm just using these figures here. So this would be a frequency table like the ones we saw in a previous lesson, and what we've actually got in the two-way table is all of this information, but we've got some extra information as well. We've broken down these totals into Year 9, Year 10 and Year 11 students. So hopefully you can see how the two-way table is like a frequency table but has extra information for you.